You're watching this because you may think the world is getting worse. It isn't. Developing countries have reduced their debt burden by 10%. The US deficit is now the lowest since 2007. With the exception of 1 year, our gross domestic product has risen every year. Minimum wages are on the rise throughout the United States. Income is 5 times what it was in 1900. The working middle class has nearly tripled since 1991. The cost of air travel has fallen by half since the late 1970s. Global extreme poverty has been cut in half since 1990. 10% of the world's forests are now protected areas, which is roughly the size of India. Awesome. The Gulf of Mexico is recovering from the 2010 oil spill, and seafood is now safe to eat. There are actually less oil spills than ever before. The growth rate of renewable energy sets new records every year. The ozone layer, it's healing. Solar panels are cheaper than ever. The cost has dropped 75% since 2008. Costa Rica went 94 days in a row using 100% clean energy. There are batteries capable of powering entire homes. We've invented a way to draw power from salt water. We can now turn poop into power. For the first time ever, China has agreed to reduce its carbon emissions. The United States is set to reduce carbon emissions 32% over the course of 25 years. The EU plans to cut their emissions by 40%. The bald eagle population in the US has increased nearly 3,000% since 1960. The number of humpback whales in the North Pacific has grown by over 20,000 since the 1960s. The rainbow toad, not seen since 1924, has reappeared. Asiatic lions have beaten extinction. US homelessness has dropped 11% since 2007. Virginia no longer has any homeless veterans. IQs are up 24 points worldwide. Only 10% of people could read in 1850, now 84% can. In developing nations, elementary school enrollment has increased to 91%. US high school graduation is at 81%, a 40-year high. There were 69 democracies in 1990. Now there are 125. That means 50% of the global population lives in a democracy. Cuban-American relations have improved. Governments all around the world are spending more on social welfare than ever before. China is developing a $1 billion peace and development fund to support the UN. Overpopulation slowing down. In 20 years, worldwide food production has risen 11%. Hunger in the developing world has almost halved since 1990. Worldwide, food is more available than ever. Since 1990, sanitation has improved for 2.1 billion people around the world. In 2 decades, 2.6 billion people have gained access to clean water. More babies are surviving infancy. Life expectancy is up 50% since the 1950s. There will be 10 times as many people reaching 100 years old by the year 2055. People are getting taller thanks to good nutrition and medical advances. We're getting stronger and faster. Half of Americans smoked in 1954. Now it's only 1 in 5. Since 2010, 16.5 million US adults have gained health insurance. Polio is 99% eradicated. Since 2003, 13 million more people are receiving treatment for HIV. The number of people dying of AIDS has been declining over the last decade. Since 2000, malaria deaths have dropped 58%. There's a safe and effective treatment for hepatitis C, which used to kill 20,000 people in the US alone. Cancer death rates decreased 22% from 1991 to 2011. There's no more smallpox at all. Seriously, no smallpox. There's a non-invasive cancer test. Scientists can now create better treatments for diseases thanks to the Human Genome Project. Scientists are revolutionizing blood transfusions by generating blood from stem cells. This means they won't have to rely on blood donations. Scientists are also working with stem cells to try and find a cure for Alzheimer's. Full-face transplants are possible. Cochlear implants have allowed deaf people to hear. Scientists can bioengineer body parts. We are 3D printing body parts. Scientists have developed thought-controlled bionic limbs. Bionic eyes are real. Last year was the safest in aviation since 1945. People in the US are finally driving less, while bike use is on the rise. Bike use is rising in the US, especially amongst senior citizens. On average, working hours have gone down in developed countries. Medical marijuana is legal in 24 states and Washington, D.C. There are now 30 ligers in the world. There are 10 million more dogs in homes today than 2000. 78 versus 68 million just 15 years ago. 3 dog breeds have been added to the American Kennel Club this year. The Barzé Picard, the Miniature American Shepherd, and the Lagotto Romagnolo. Violent crime is down 71% in the US, and global homicide rates have decreased. In the last decade, the percentage of violent deaths has plummeted. A third of Americans had guns in 1985. Now, it's 1 in 5. Burglary and theft are drastically decreasing in the United States. The number of civil wars has dramatically declined around the world. The last decade has seen fewer war deaths than any decade in the past 100 years. School-based bullying has decreased for the first time since 2005. We are currently mapping the surface of Mars. NASA is preparing a manned mission to Mars by 2040. Scientists are working on an anti-aging gene solution. We have 300% more Hemsworth brothers than we had in 1982. 87% of Americans approve of interracial marriage versus the 90% disapproval in 1950. Same-sex marriage is now legal in 20 countries. Lesbian, gay and bisexual soldiers can now legally serve openly in the US and in many other countries. The ban on transgender soldiers is being lifted in the US. In 20 years, the number of female politicians in office, it's doubled. A majority of countries have gender equality in primary school. The US Supreme Court now has 3 female representatives. Women now represent more than half of university students worldwide. 2012 was the first time women competed in every single Olympic sport. 60% of households had a phone in 1960. Now the average is 6 per home. Global internet use has increased from 6% to 43% since 2000. 42% of the world is online. The number of computers per US household has doubled in 15 years. 66% of consumers prefer to buy from environmentally and socially conscious companies. Total giving to charitable organizations in America increased 5.4% this year alone. Over the last 4 years, worldwide charitable giving has increased by 4%. Globally, people aged 15 to 29 donated more time and money in 2014 than in the past 5 years. In the US, 52% of people believe their financial situation is improving, the highest it's been in over a decade. You see, everything is getting better.